That is a true story about AJ McLean, by the way. So when I go to the gym, which is not really that often, I'll just pick up whatever magazine's lying around to read. So this particular day, I'd already been through all of the Business Insider magazines that were like 5 years out of date. And I picked up a copy of Outside magazine from 2004. So I'm 20 minutes into my workout on the elliptical, and I'm reading some story about some guy who was hiking in Utah, and he falls into a canyon. He gets his arm stuck, and he's stuck for a long time, and days go by, and he starts to think about how he can use his penknife to get out of there. And I realize that I am not feeling okay. I thought it was just working up a sweat, but I'm like really hot, and my whole body is prickly, and time, even though I'm moving forward on this elliptical machine, time has like totally stopped. My vision, my field of vision is like narrowing into this smaller and smaller tunnel, and I think, oh my God, I'm gonna black out. So at the last second, I realize what's going on, and I get off the machine, and I sit down, and I put my head between my knees, and I take a few deep breaths. And the moment passes, and I come back from the brink, and I look up, and no one seems to have noticed me, which is amazing because I hate being the center of attention, and I hate causing a scene. That was the day that I realized that I have a phobia of blood, needles, medical things, injuries, and like a lot of people who have this phobia, the sight of blood can make me pass out. And in my day-to-day life, that just means I don't watch scary movies, and if I have to go get blood taken or something, I lay down immediately because just walking into the clinic, I can feel lightheaded. A paper cut I can handle. Anything more serious, I'm like totally woozy, I'm out for the count. But it's okay if I'm smart about it. I can avoid these situations if I'm smart about it. So 10 years later, I am getting on a plane. My best friend and I have just spent a week's vacation in Iceland, and we traveled the country, which is beautiful, and the only tension that we had was a little bit of bickering over money, because she's the kind of person who she'll take a cab anywhere, down the street. But I'm the kind of person who would rather walk or take transit. But anyways, Iceland's an expensive but beautiful country. We had a nice time. So we're getting on the plane, and I'm sitting at the front, which is perfect for me, and she's way at the back, but that's okay too because we just spent this week together. We have some distance. And I get to my seat, and on one side of me is this Norwegian mom type, and I'm in the middle. And on the aisle is this stoic Nordic dad. And they're both reading books. They barely look up as I sit down, which is great because I don't like making small talk, but I do love watching movies on planes. So we take off, and I put in my headphones, and I get my coffee, and I get my snacks and whatever on the table, and I'm flicking through the options, and I see 127 hours. I'm like, I've heard of that. And this little voice inside my head goes, are you really sure that that's a good idea? And I'm like, no, it's gonna be okay. And this voice goes, but you don't even like James Franco. And I'm like, no, but he was nominated for an Oscar, right? So I know how this movie goes. It's a guy, he's hiking in Utah, he falls down a canyon, and I can't really enjoy the movie because I have this creeping sense of dread, and I know how this ends. So all of a sudden, I get that hot feeling. Not just hot, but so hot, like, you know, you're wearing too many coats and sweaters on the subway, and you're trapped, and you're trying to get out of there. And I also have this prickly feeling coming on. And my field of vision starts to narrow into this smaller and smaller tunnel. And all of a sudden, I realize that I'm panting. And I have two competing needs. One is that I need no one to look at me because I'm mortified. But the other is that I need someone to help because I need to put my head down. I need to put my head between my knees or I'm going to pass out. But my tray table is covered with all this stuff. It's got coffee cups and magazines. And I'm like, oh my God. And so I'm panting and I can't talk because my hands and my mouth are full of these heavy pins and needles. I'm like, they're completely useless. So I can't move any of this stuff myself. And I feel myself drifting away and I can't do anything about it. And then everything just goes black. A few minutes later, or I don't know how long later, the Norwegian mom on my left, I realized she's rubbing my back. And I'm like, she's like, you're not okay, you're not okay. And I kind of lift my head and my TV screen has gone dark. And this stoic dad here to my right goes, we turned it off. No more movies. But still, I know that I need to put my head down, like it's still happening. And all of a sudden I see the flight attendants coming down the aisle. I'm like, oh God. What I want to say is, please don't turn the plane around. I'm just having a moment here. I'll be fine in a second if I can just lift this tray table and put my head down. But what I really say is, and one of them has the oxygen mask. And I'm like, what I want to say is, actually, I've just been hyperventilating, so there's an imbalance between the carbon dioxide and the oxygen in my bloodstream, so your mask is going to make this whole situation worse. But what I say is, thankfully, Norwegian mom understands what's going on. She was the only one. She moved all the stuff, she put the thing up, and I could put my head down, and I start breathing into the paper sick bag. And things start to calm down. Meanwhile, these two blonde, beautiful, poised Icelandic queens in their pillbox hats are still standing over me, and everybody is staring. Everybody in my vicinity is staring at me. And they're trying to convince me to go to the bathroom at the back of the plane, but I'm at the front. And there is no way I can face walking past all these people because, of course, I realize in my panic, I have now sweat through my clothes. My jeans and my t-shirt, which unfortunately was gray. And finally they put the oxygen mask away and they're trying to get me to come with them. And I'm saying, no, that's what I'm saying. Finally, they convinced me to go to the first class bathroom. So I think, okay, well, I've never been in the first class bathroom. And then I realized that everyone will have their back to me if I go to the front of the plane, which is great because I stumble forward, like I'm clutching the backs of the seats. I look like I've just learned how to walk today. And I finally make it to the first class bathroom, and I get in there, and I looked in the mirror. I guess I shouldn't have, but I did, and I looked awful. My hair was all frizzy. I'm like completely soaked. My eyes are bloodshot. I think I had been crying at some point, and I'm like, I can't go back out there. So I stayed in the first class bathroom for what seemed like an unreasonable amount of time. And the first class bathroom still sucks, by the way. I don't know if you've ever been there. So I realized I can't stay in here forever. And I muster up the courage, I get myself together, and I walk back. Although now they're all facing me like you are, and they're all these fancy people with their, I don't know, champagne. But at this point, I don't even care, and I make it back to my seat. And I sit back between Norwegian mom and dad. And he says, are you sure you're okay? And I'm like, yes. And he goes, has this ever happened to you before? I'm like, yes. But the stewardesses keep coming by and they keep checking on me, and I finally shoo them away. And I turn on a documentary about volcanoes, and everything's okay after that. The rest of the flight is sort of uneventful, except for they keep giving me these sidelong glances, and they keep checking up on me, and everyone keeps sort of doing this and staring at me a little bit, but it's okay. Finally, we land, and people are getting off the plane, and I wait for my friend to come meet me. She was behind, so we get off together, and these two blonde Icelandic queens are still standing there, and I'm totally embarrassed, and I feel like I have to say, thank you so much. I'm sorry I caused an international crisis over the Atlantic. And the one grabs my shoulders and she says, "Are you sure you're okay?" And my friend looked at me and she finally takes a good look at me and she's like, "What the hell happened to you?" And I was like, "You know what? It's a long story. I'll tell you in the cab." Thank you.